The underground market of Carthos 9 was always loud at night. Rusty metal doors slammed shut while giant alien creatures screamed behind electric cages. Smoke from old cooking machines filled the dirty air, mixing with the smell of oil, blood, and burning wires. Traders shouted prices from every corner while armed guards walked through the crowd with plasma rifles in their hands. Nobody came to this place for kindness. On Carthos 9, weak creatures were either sold, eaten, or turned into slaves before sunrise. The market was feared across the entire sector, and most humans avoided it completely. Ethan Cole slowly walked through the crowded street with his hood covering half of his face. He was only there to buy a rare engine part for his old cargo ship. Ethan hated the market more than anything, but sometimes poor pilots had no choice. His boots stepped through muddy water while angry voices echoed around him from every direction. Large cages stood beside the road filled with frightened alien species waiting to be sold. Some were dangerous criminals, but many looked harmless and terrified. Ethan tried not to look into their eyes because the fear inside those cages always stayed in his mind for days. A huge alien butcher suddenly laughed as Ethan passed one of the shops. The creature pointed toward several cages covered with dirty metal sheets. "Fresh meat today," the butcher shouted proudly to nearby customers. "Young aliens, soft bones, very expensive." Some buyers moved closer while others checked the frightened prisoners like animals in a farm market. Ethan clenched his fists and kept walking. He had seen terrible things during his years traveling through space, but this place felt worse every time he returned. There was no law inside the underground market. Credits mattered more than lives. Then Ethan heard something soft behind him. At first he thought the noise came from one of the damaged machines nearby, but the whisper came again, weak and shaking. "Please. Human." Ethan slowly stopped walking as cold air passed through the dark hallway. "Buy me instead," the voice whispered again quietly. "Just don't let them eat me." Ethan turned toward a small cage hidden behind larger containers. Inside the darkness sat a young alien girl wrapped in dirty gray cloth. Her glowing blue eyes looked directly at him with pure fear. The girl looked weak and injured. Silver-white hair covered part of her face while metal chains locked her small hands to the cage floor. Bruises covered her pale blue skin, and one of her legs was connected to a broken robotic brace that sparked with weak energy. She could not have been older than 16 by human standards. The girl moved backward in fear when nearby customers looked toward the cage, but when she looked at Ethan again, hope appeared inside her eyes for only a second. She quickly grabbed the bars with shaking fingers. "Please," she whispered again. "I can clean ships, repair things, anything." Before Ethan could answer, a large market owner stepped out from the shadows with a cruel smile on his face. "Beautiful creature, right?" The man laughed loudly. "Rare species, very expensive meat." Ethan felt anger rise inside his chest immediately. The girl lowered her head as if she had already accepted her fate long ago. Around them, buyers continued walking through the market without caring about the terrified child inside the cage. To them, she was only another product waiting to be sold before morning. The market owner kicked the cage lightly, making the girl flinch in pain. Ethan stared at the frightened alien girl for several silent seconds. Something felt wrong about this situation. Most alien prisoners screamed, cried, or begged loudly in fear, but this girl stayed quiet, almost as if years of suffering had already broken her spirit. Then Ethan noticed a strange symbol burned into the skin near her neck. It looked ancient and carefully hidden beneath dirt and bruises. The moment the market owner saw Ethan staring at the mark, his smile disappeared for a second. "Don't ask questions," the man muttered coldly. "Just buy or leave." Suddenly, loud footsteps echoed across the underground hallway. The noisy market slowly became silent as heavily armored soldiers entered through the main gate. Their black armor carried the symbol of the Galactic Hunter Guild, one of the deadliest organizations in known space. People quickly moved away from their path while shop owners lowered their heads nervously. The leader removed his helmet and scanned the crowd with sharp eyes. Then his deep voice echoed through the market. "Search every cage," he ordered. The royal girl escaped nearby. Inside the small cage, the terrified alien girl grabbed Ethan's sleeve tightly and whispered with tears in her eyes, "Please, don't let them take me back." The underground market became louder again after the hunters moved deeper into the lower streets, but Ethan could still feel the alien girl trembling beside the cage bars. Her small fingers refused to let go of his sleeve, almost as if he was the only safe thing left in the entire galaxy. Ethan looked around carefully before pulling a small credit chip from his coat pocket. The market owner's greedy eyes immediately widened with interest. "Smart choice, human," the man said with a dark smile. "She may look weak, but rare meat always tastes better." Ethan felt sick hearing those words, but he forced himself to stay calm while the owner unlocked the cage. The chains around the girl's wrists fell heavily onto the metal floor. She tried to stand quickly, but her damaged robotic leg failed almost immediately. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground, and the girl froze in complete shock. Her glowing blue eyes stared at him nervously because nobody had touched her gently before. Most people in the market only pushed, kicked, or chained her like an animal. Ethan carefully helped her stand while the market owner laughed behind them. "Careful," the man mocked. "That creature brings bad luck. Hunters have been searching all night because of her." Ethan ignored him and covered the frightened girl with his heavy jacket before leading her out of the market. Cold rain poured across the streets of Carthos 9 as Ethan hurried toward the docking area. Neon lights reflected across dirty water, while giant cargo ships roared above the city skyline. The alien girl stayed close beside him the entire time, limping badly because of her damaged leg brace. Every loud sound made her flinch in fear. When security drones flew overhead, she instantly hid behind Ethan's back like a terrified child. Ethan noticed bruises across her arms and fresh burn marks near the metal collar around her neck. Whoever captured her before had treated her far worse than a prisoner. The girl looked exhausted, hungry, and completely broken inside. After several minutes, they finally reached Ethan's old cargo ship, the Horizon Drift. The ship was large, rusty, and far from beautiful, but it was home. Ethan quickly opened the loading ramp and guided the girl inside before checking the empty docking bay outside. Once the doors sealed shut, the girl immediately stepped backward nervously. Her eyes moved across the dark cargo room, searching for chains, cages, or weapons. Ethan slowly placed his tools onto a nearby table before speaking softly. "You're safe here," he said quietly. The girl looked confused by those words because safety was something she had not felt in a very long time. Ethan walked toward a storage locker and removed a small food container from inside. The moment he offered it to her, the alien girl stared at him in disbelief. Slowly, carefully, she took the container with shaking hands. Then she suddenly dropped to the floor and began eating desperately like someone afraid the food might disappear. Ethan looked away for a moment because the sight hurt more than he expected. No living creature should ever be that hungry. After several minutes, the girl finally stopped eating and lowered her head in embarrassment. "Sorry," she whispered weakly. "I thought maybe you would change your mind." Ethan sat across from her beside the engine wall while repair lights flickered softly above them. "What's your name?" he asked calmly. The girl hesitated for several seconds before answering. "Lyra," she whispered quietly. Ethan nodded once before looking toward her damaged robotic leg. Sparks continued jumping from the broken metal joints every few seconds. "That thing needs repairs," he said. Lyra instantly pulled her leg backward in fear, expecting pain. Ethan noticed the panic in her eyes immediately. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said carefully. Lyra looked at him silently, unsure whether she could believe those words yet. Hours passed while Ethan repaired the damaged brace using old ship parts and basic tools. Lyra stayed completely silent during most of the repairs, watching his hands nervously the entire time. Every time Ethan reached for a tool too quickly, she flinched automatically. The reactions looked natural to her, like someone who had learned to fear pain every single day. Finally, the brace powered on again with a soft blue glow. Lyra slowly moved her leg and stared in shock when the pain disappeared slightly. "Why?" she suddenly asked in a quiet voice. Ethan looked up from his tools. "Why what?" he answered. Lyra lowered her eyes toward the floor. "Why help me?" Before Ethan could answer, a warning alarm suddenly echoed through the cargo ship. Red lights flashed across the walls while the ship computer activated automatically. Ethan quickly moved toward the control screen near the cockpit. His expression darkened immediately when he saw several incoming security signals approaching the docking station. Lyra noticed the fear on his face and stepped backward slowly. Then a large news broadcast suddenly appeared on the screen above them. A digital image of Lyra filled the monitor while a robotic voice echoed through the ship. "Attention citizens," the message announced. 5 million credits offered for information regarding the escaped royal survivor. Lyra's face turned pale as she whispered only one terrified sentence. "They found me." The red warning lights continued flashing across the cargo ship, while the robotic announcement repeated Lyra's face again and again on the monitor. Ethan quickly shut the screen off, but the damage was already done. Lyra stood frozen near the engine wall with fear covering her face completely. Her hands trembled as she slowly stepped backward into the shadows. "You should leave me," she whispered weakly. 5 million credits is too much. Everyone always chooses money." Ethan looked at her silently for a moment before grabbing his jacket from the control chair. "I'm not selling you," he answered firmly. But deep inside, even he knew dangerous people would soon come searching. Outside the ship, heavy footsteps echoed across the docking platform. Ethan moved carefully toward the small cockpit window and looked outside. 3 black armored vehicles had stopped near the docking bay entrance, and armed hunters were spreading through the area quickly. Their armor carried the same silver symbol Ethan had seen earlier inside the underground market. Lyra noticed the movement outside and instantly panicked. She backed into the corner beside the engine room while breathing faster with every second. "No," she whispered fearfully. "They found me again." Ethan turned toward her immediately. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "Hide inside the lower engine compartment and stay quiet no matter what happens." Lyra hesitated for only a second before crawling toward the hidden compartment beneath the ship's reactor controls. Ethan quickly closed the metal panel above her just as loud banging exploded against the cargo ramp outside. "Open this ship immediately!" a deep voice ordered through the speakers. Ethan took one slow breath before activating the cargo doors. The ramp lowered slowly with a loud mechanical sound, revealing 4 heavily armed bounty hunters standing outside in the rain. Their leader stepped forward confidently while scanning the ship with cold gray eyes. "Human," the hunter said calmly. "We're searching for stolen property connected to a galactic investigation." Ethan crossed his arms and leaned against the cargo wall casually. "You have a warrant?" he asked coldly. The hunter smirked slightly before stepping closer. "On this planet, we don't need one." 2 armed soldiers immediately pushed past Ethan and began searching the cargo area. Large metal crates were opened one after another while scanners moved across the walls looking for hidden life signs. Ethan stayed calm on the outside, but his heart beat harder every second. Beneath the floor only a few meters away, Lyra stayed hidden in complete silence. Even the smallest noise would expose her immediately. One of the hunters suddenly stopped near the engine compartment. "Commander," he called out loudly. "I'm detecting unstable energy under this section." Ethan's body tensed instantly. The hunter slowly reached toward the hidden panel, while another soldier lifted his plasma rifle carefully. Inside the compartment, Lyra covered her mouth with both hands to stop herself from breathing too loudly. Fear filled her glowing eyes as memories of prison cages and torture rooms rushed through her mind again. She already believed this was the moment they would drag her away forever. Above her, the metal panel slowly began opening inch by inch. Then suddenly sparks exploded from the main control wall nearby. Smoke burst across the cargo room while warning alarms screamed loudly through the ship. Ethan secretly smiled, because he had overloaded the old wiring system moments earlier. "Your men broke my reactor controls," he shouted angrily over the alarms. "This entire ship could explode." The hunters stepped backward immediately while smoke filled the hallway. The commander cursed under his breath before signaling his soldiers toward the exit. "Move out," he ordered sharply. "This junk ship isn't worth dying inside." Ethan continued pretending to repair the broken system, while the hunters slowly retreated off the cargo ramp. Several long minutes passed before complete silence finally returned to the docking bay. Ethan locked the cargo doors carefully and shut down the fake alarm system. Only then did he kneel beside the engine compartment and open the hidden panel slowly. Lyra remained curled tightly inside the dark space with tears running silently down her face. She looked up at Ethan carefully, almost unable to believe she was still free. "Why?" she whispered again through shaky breathing. "Why risk your life for me?" Ethan sat quietly beside the compartment before answering. "Because you're not property," he said calmly. "And you're definitely not food." For the first time since Ethan met her, Lyra's fearful expression weakened slightly. She looked at him silently as if trying to understand someone who showed kindness without asking for anything in return. But before either of them could speak again, a small red light suddenly blinked beneath the skin near Lyra's neck. Ethan noticed it instantly. His face darkened as he leaned closer toward the glowing mark. Hidden under the burned royal symbol was a tiny tracking device, no bigger than a coin. The blinking light grew brighter every second. Then somewhere far outside the ship, a loud mechanical roar echoed through the night sky as new hunter ships descended toward the docking station. The small red tracker under Lyra's skin continued blinking faster, while the sound of arriving hunter ships thundered outside the docking station. Ethan quickly grabbed a medical toolkit from the wall cabinet and motioned for Lyra to sit near the engine table. Her breathing became uneven again as fear returned to her eyes. "They always find me," she whispered weakly while staring at the glowing tracker. "No matter where I run." Ethan carefully examined the device under the light. The metal looked military-grade, far more advanced than normal bounty hunter technology. Whoever placed it inside her wanted permanent control over her location. Lyra flinched the moment Ethan picked up a cutting tool. Years of torture had taught her to expect pain whenever sharp instruments appeared. Ethan immediately noticed the fear on her face and lowered the tool slightly. "I need to remove it," he explained calmly, "but I'll be careful." Lyra stayed silent for several seconds before slowly nodding. She closed her eyes tightly while Ethan worked carefully near the burned symbol on her neck. Sweat rolled down his forehead, because one mistake could damage important nerves. Outside, warning sirens echoed across the city, while searchlights moved between ships in the dark, rainy sky. After several tense minutes, Ethan finally pulled the tiny tracker free. Sparks flashed briefly before the red light died completely. Lyra released a shaky breath and nearly collapsed from relief. Ethan crushed the device under his boot immediately before throwing the broken pieces into the ship's waste burner. "That should slow them down," he said quietly. But when he turned around again, he noticed tears rolling silently down Lyra's face. She quickly wiped them away, embarrassed by her emotions. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I just forgot what it feels like when someone helps without hurting me after." The cargo ship became quiet for a while except for the soft hum of the engines. Ethan sat across from Lyra while rain hit the metal walls outside. For the first time since escaping the market, Lyra looked slightly calmer. Ethan handed her a warm drink from the ship's heater system, and she carefully wrapped both hands around the cup. The warmth seemed unfamiliar to her, almost like a forgotten memory from another life. Ethan watched her silently before finally asking the question that had stayed in his mind since the market. "Who are you really, Lyra?" he asked softly. "And why are so many people hunting you?" Lyra lowered her eyes toward the floor for a long moment. Then slowly, she pulled back part of her damaged collar, revealing the full ancient symbol burned into her skin. The glowing mark looked beautiful and painful at the same time, shaped like a silver star surrounded by strange lines. Ethan immediately recognized it from old Galactic history files. His expression changed instantly. "That's impossible," he muttered quietly. Lyra looked at him with sadness in her glowing eyes. "My family ruled the planet Illyria before the war," she admitted softly. I'm the last surviving daughter of the royal house. Ethan stared at her in complete disbelief while Lyra continued speaking quietly. Years ago, the Illyrian people were one of the most peaceful civilizations in the galaxy. They shared advanced healing technology freely and refused to build weapons for war. But powerful empires grew afraid of their influence and attacked their world without warning. Cities burned for weeks while millions died under orbital bombardments. Lyra's voice shook as painful memories returned to her mind. My parents tried to protect everyone, she whispered, but they were betrayed by people they trusted. She lowered her head as tears slowly fell onto her hands. The room remained silent except for the rain outside while Lyra described the night her world died. Soldiers invaded the royal palace while fires consumed the cities around them. Her mother hid her inside an escape transport moments before enemy forces arrived. But the ship was captured before reaching safety. Since then, Lyra had spent years moving between prisons, laboratories, and black markets, where powerful people tried to use her royal blood for their own plans. Most buyers wanted experiments, she whispered painfully. Others wanted to sell me piece by piece. Ethan felt anger growing inside him with every word. For the first time, Ethan finally understood why the hunters were desperate to capture her alive. Lyra was not just another escaped prisoner. She was proof that the Illyrian royal bloodline still existed. And if powerful governments discovered she survived, entire systems could fall into chaos again. Ethan leaned back quietly, while thinking through the danger surrounding them both now. Across the cargo room, Lyra looked toward him nervously, almost expecting him to change his mind after hearing the truth. Instead, Ethan stood up and walked toward the navigation controls. Then we leave tonight, he said firmly, before those hunters come back. But before the ship could prepare for departure, the main communication screen suddenly activated by itself. Static filled the room for several seconds before the image of a tall, armored commander appeared on the monitor. His cold mechanical eyes stared directly into the camera. Human pilot, the commander said calmly. You are protecting stolen royal property belonging to the Dominion. Lyra's face immediately turned pale with fear. The commander leaned slightly closer toward the screen before speaking again in a darker voice. Return the girl willingly. He paused for a moment as dozens of warships slowly appeared behind him in orbit. Or your entire planet burns with her. The communication screen went dark, but the commander's final words continued echoing through the cargo ship like a nightmare. Lyra stood frozen beside the engine table, while fear slowly filled her glowing blue eyes again. Outside the docking bay, loud sirens spread across the city as military ships moved through the rainy skies of Carthos 9. Ethan immediately rushed toward the control panel and activated the ship systems. Old engines growled awake beneath the floor while warning lights flashed across the cockpit walls. We're leaving now, he said firmly. Lyra looked toward him nervously. They'll destroy your ship, she whispered. Ethan tightened his grip on the controls. Then we fly faster. The horizon drift lifted from the docking platform only seconds before armed security vehicles arrived below. Rain hammered against the ship's windows while massive city towers disappeared behind thick clouds. Ethan pushed the engines harder as warning alarms screamed across the dashboard. The cargo ship shook violently while several hunter fighters launched after them from nearby stations. Enemy lock detected, the ship computer announced coldly. Lyra grabbed the side of the control chair tightly as bright plasma blasts exploded behind them in the darkness. Ethan pulled the ship sharply between two giant factory towers, barely avoiding another deadly shot that melted part of the metal wall beside them. The old cargo ship raced through the crowded industrial zone while explosions lit the stormy sky behind them. Ethan's hands moved quickly across the controls as he guided the damaged vessel through narrow gaps between giant structures. Lyra watched him silently with wide eyes. She had never seen someone fight so hard just to protect another person. Most people in the galaxy cared only about survival or money, but Ethan risked everything without hesitation. Suddenly the ship shook violently after another blast struck the rear engine. Sparks exploded from the control panel while smoke filled part of the cockpit. Engine 3 is failing, the computer warned immediately. Ethan cursed quietly under his breath while trying to stabilize the ship. I need manual repairs, he said quickly before standing from the pilot seat. Lyra looked toward the burning control wires nervously. What can I do? She asked softly. Ethan pointed toward the navigation controls. Keep us flying straight, he answered. Lyra's eyes widened in panic. I don't know how to fly human ships. Ethan gave a small smile despite the danger surrounding them. Neither did I the first time. Before she could argue, Ethan disappeared toward the lower engine room while alarms continued screaming through the ship. Lyra slowly sat inside the pilot chair while her shaking hands rested on the controls. Outside the front window, stars blurred across the darkness while enemy fighters closed in behind them. Every warning sound made her heart beat faster. Suddenly, another plasma blast exploded nearby, causing the cargo ship to spin dangerously sideways. Lyra gasped and grabbed the controls tightly, trying to remember everything Ethan had shown her earlier. Slowly, the ship stabilized again. For the first time in years, someone trusted her with responsibility instead of treating her like property. The feeling frightened her almost as much as the hunters behind them. Down inside the engine room, Ethan worked desperately to repair the burning systems. Hot steam filled the narrow hallway while sparks rained from broken power lines above him. He quickly replaced damaged energy cells while the ship continued shaking from enemy attacks. Suddenly, the lights flickered red again. Missile lock detected, the computer announced loudly. Ethan's face darkened instantly. The old cargo ship would never survive a direct missile hit. He grabbed his repair tools quickly and ran back toward the cockpit as fast as possible. But before he reached the door, a violent explosion ripped through the rear section of the ship. Ethan crashed hard against the metal floor as emergency lights filled the hallway. Pain shot through his shoulder while smoke poured into the cargo room from a broken wall panel. In the cockpit, Lyra screamed his name for the first time as warning sirens echoed across the ship. The cargo vessel began falling toward a dangerous asteroid field nearby. Lyra looked between the spinning stars outside and the unconscious human lying behind her. Fear filled her chest completely. For years, she had depended on others to survive. But now Ethan's life depended on her. Slowly, the terrified alien girl tightened her shaking hands around the controls and whispered quietly to herself, "Don't be afraid anymore." The cargo ship raced directly toward the massive asteroid field while enemy fighters followed closely behind. Lyra's breathing remained uneven, but something inside her slowly changed. She remembered Ethan standing against armed hunters for her. She remembered the warm food, the repaired leg brace, and the words he told her inside the engine room. "You're a person." Nobody had spoken to her like that before. Her glowing eyes slowly hardened with determination as she pulled the controls sharply sideways. The old cargo ship slipped dangerously between two giant asteroids, while enemy fighters crashed behind them in explosions of fire and metal. Minutes later, the damaged ship finally escaped deeper into empty space beyond the asteroid field. Smoke drifted through the dark hallways, while broken wires sparked across the floor. Lyra quickly left the cockpit and rushed toward Ethan, who still lay injured near the engine room entrance. She carefully lifted his head onto her lap while fear filled her voice again. "Please wake up," she whispered softly. Ethan slowly opened his eyes with pain across his face. The first thing he saw was Lyra trying desperately to save him instead of running away. For the first time since her rescue, Ethan noticed something different in her expression. The terrified girl from the cage was slowly disappearing. In her place stood someone stronger,